I'm Tara Bennett for Sci-Fi Wire, and I have the great privilege of being able to talk to Tania del Rio today. Hi, Tania.
Hi.
All right, so a lot of people really love your run on Sabrina for Archie, and that ran from 2004 to 2009. What do you think about that run really resonated with fans?
I think it was different from traditional Archie comics in that it was a very continuous story. There was a lot of character development, a lot of emotions, and there was even kind of an uprising subplot against a corrupt magical government, which was kind of different for Sabrina's world. So I think people kind of resonate with the kind of real life elements that were included in the story.
Do you hear a lot of feedback, even now to this day? What are some of the major things that you hear about, where they kind of cherry pick from it?
I hear a lot of people just say that it was one of the more interesting and kind of unexpected retellings of the Sabrina story, because Sabrina's been retold so many times over her history. I mean, she was created, I think, back in 1942 or something, and since then she's gone through so many incarnations, and this was just my version of it, and I think people really liked, some people were a little thrown off by the kind of manga style, but I think people kind of learned that that was just an aesthetic, and actually the storyline was actually pretty deep, and a lot of people really liked the relationships and the kind of the drama that I brought to the story.
Well, I really did love that you brought that kind of manga style into it, and that's all. Sometimes comic book and manga fans don't cross, so do you feel like because of your choices with going with that design aesthetic that you actually maybe pulled in some people that would have never given Sabrina a chance, and then maybe even allowed some people to look at manga in a different way?
Yeah, I definitely think that's the case. There were definitely, before it even came out, there was a lot of backlash from the diehard fans who did not like the manga style, and I was kind of expecting that, and that didn't bother me. And I did find that a lot of them eventually did, because I think because the series went on for so long, that it did give people a chance to kind of pick it up and kind of read it a little bit and see that it wasn't going anywhere. And then people did eventually say, well, I wasn't sure about this at first, but I'm totally sold. And also on the other side, we did bring in some new people who, especially young female readers who really liked manga, because that was during the manga boom, who jumped onto the Archie, train as far as the Sabrina world. Like some of them thought Archie was too young or too kiddie, and totally reached across both aisles.
Archie is really, you could say arguably, it's really been on a resurgence in the last 15 years, especially, you saw it during your run. It's now got a TV show, spin off with Riverdale. And what do you think about Archie and that world, and Sabrina has allowed it to kind of come back and be present again in the cultural zeitgeist?
I love it. I think it's great because the characters are so iconic, and I think they do need to be reborn for each generation. Because they're teenagers, and it's like every generation I think needs to have their story. Yeah. And I know there's always resistance every time they're changed or there's something new done to it. But I think it's kind of refreshing to see, what's going to happen with them next. And and at the same time, there's always going to be the classic Archie. That's always there. They still do the digests. I still have written some stories for the digests on the side, so that's not going anywhere. But it's been fun. I think I'm always a fan of a company that can reinvent itself and just keep pushing the envelope as far as what they can do with their characters.
When you're working with younger readers, was there an approach that you took that was different than maybe what you've done in other stories or other books? When you're kind of figuring out, do I talk to a certain age, or do I just write what I write and then, have that age kind of come to it?
I definitely just write how I write, and I think I've always written in general for a younger audience, but with Archie too, because they have a code. You can't, well, maybe not so much now because they've been doing the new stuff, but when I was working there were certain things you couldn't do in the comics, so I had a sort of a guideline. Yeah. So that kind of informed my creativity, but with Warren, I just felt like I was writing for, I didn't really think about who I was writing for, and I think that's the way to do it, because I think when you try and write down to kids, it ends up coming off as patronizing or condescending, and I think kids are a lot smarter than we give them credit for, and they can handle a lot. I was reading a lot of pretty advanced stuff when I was a kid, and I liked it, when our authors didn't act like I was a fool or stupid for being young. And so that's kind of how I go about it. I don't censor my words. I don't, obviously there's no vulgar language, but the themes and the vocabulary I use are not simplified.